Welcome back. We are pleased that Ray Anderson has joined us in conversation. The conversation being Bill Russell, I, Paula Gordon, Ray Anderson. Conversations with people at the leading edge. This guy who said somewhat offhandedly to you, why do we call our factories plants? Leads to a whole way of thinking about how you do business, doesn't it?
Yeah, it surely does. It's a field of biomimicry. Janine Benyus invented the words, as far as I know. She wrote the book with that title, and she surveyed the field to find out what was going on where people were looking to nature for inspiration to solve real industrial problems. Such questions arose as, how does the abalone do it? The abalone makes a ceramic that's tougher than any man-made ceramic, does it out of readily abundant minerals and seawater at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Our best ceramics are made at 4,000 degrees, and the abalone does it better. How does a spider do it? How does a spider create a textile fiber that is 5 times stronger than Kevlar, which is the best man-made fiber for toughness and strength there is? It makes bulletproof vests. How does a spider do it out of bugs at body temperature when Kevlar requires boiling sulfuric acid? Yeah. So you get these interesting questions, and you look to nature for the answers, and you find nature's design principles, and you apply them to real industrial processes, not by domesticating nature, but by learning from nature's principles, and translating them into real problem solving. How does the lotus leaf clean itself? Well, it turns out there's a very micro structure in the surface of the lotus leaf, which if you emulate it in paint, you get a self-cleaning wall that where the dirt balls up and the little drops of water, and the whole thing self-cleans. It's the texture of the surface, learned from studying the lotus leaf.
What does that have to do with making carpets?
Well, in our instance, our head of design, David Oakey, read the book. It moved him in much the same way that Paul Hawkins' book moved me. And one day he said to his design team, go into the forest and see how nature designs floor coverings. And don't come back with leaf designs. He says, come back with nature's design principles. So the design team spent a day studying the forest floor and the stream beds, and finally dawned on them, there's no two things alike here. No two sticks, no two stones, no two leaves, no two anything, no 2 square feet of the forest floor are identical. And yet it all blends together into a very harmonious whole, very pleasant. So they came back to the design studio, designed a carpet tile, modular carpet, such that the face designs of no 2 modules, no 2 tiles are the same. All are similar, they all belong together, but no 2 are alike. And introduced that product into the marketplace with the name Entropy. That's a scientific term associated with disorder. And in a year and a half, it went to the top of the bestseller list faster than any other product ever had in the company's history. And as we began to understand the popularity of Entropy, it turns out in the production process is almost no off quality. The inspectors cannot find defects among this deliberate imperfection of no 2 tiles alike. The installer gets to install the tiles very quickly because he doesn't have to take the extra time to get the pile nap all running in the same direction. He just puts the tiles down randomly, and the more random, the better. So he takes them out of the box the way they come and installs them. He can breeze through the installation. The user can now even replace an individual damaged tile when there's a spill or damage, whatever, without creating the sore thumb effect that so typically comes when everything is absolutely uniform and you put the new amongst the old. The new stands out like a sore thumb, but it's not so with Entropy. The new blends in. There are no longer issues of dye lots. One dye lot merges with another indistinguishably, which means you don't have to have the extra tiles on the shelf waiting to be used, money tied up in inventory, waiting to be used on the floor. So advantage after advantage after advantage emerged, and then we learned, there's a speaker on the environmental speaking circuit who begins every speech by having her audience close their eyes and visualize in their mind's eye their perfect comfort zone, that perfect place of peace and repose and tranquility, creativity, comfort. She lets them think about it. And then she says, now, lift your hand high if you're somewhere outdoors. I have done it over 500 times around the world, and 95% of the hands go up. It is amazing. And it's true everywhere on earth. We humans gravitate to nature subconsciously for that ideal comfort zone. And somehow I think entropy brings outdoors indoors in a subliminal way, and that's its real appeal. So there's real power in biomimicry. And by the way, this quality also has a name, biophilia, coined by the great Harvard biologist Ed Wilson. This affinity that we have for nature.
Because we are of it. It isn't other.
Right, exactly. This world does not belong to us. We belong to it.
It seems, a lot of what you're talking about can be generalized. These are general principles that you've developed. The multiple sides of the mountain.
Well, when you talk about the plant, and Janine wrote this book, and in the last chapter she describes the industrial company that is modeled after nature. And she describes Interface without ever having met or even known of anyone at Interface when she sat down and wrote the chapter. But it describes the sustainable company that's modeled after nature. What does that mean? Well, nature runs on sunlight. Nature recycles everything. In nature, there's no waste. One organism's waste is another organism's food. So the cycles of nature are using everything. And nature's beautiful. And nature is very resource efficient. So you say, well, how are you going to create an industrial company that's sustainable? Well, you just take a look at nature and do it the way nature does it. Renewable energy, renewable materials, recycle everything, beautiful products, resource efficient production.
And it's profitable.
And it's profitable. It is a better way to bigger profits.
As usual, you're ahead of me. I was going to ask, we're restoring a place in Kimberley, British Columbia, renovating it as greenly as we know how. And one of the appealing things about the community is they've committed to being the greenest city in North America, which is a fairly ambitious task.
At least some of the people there. I'm not sure the entire city's quite there yet, but it's sort of like the industrial process.
We haven't had a vote yet. And in precisely the manner you're talking about, what would you say to somebody who in their hearts, in their souls, in their spirits, have made that commitment as a community? How do they get from an okay place to being among the greenest cities in the world?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert in city planning.
But you weren't an expert in sustainable carpets either.
Well, I spent a lot of time learning that one, and I haven't spent the time to learn
what
you're talking about. But I would say, just marrying my views with what you've just described, I don't think you'll find a sustainable community without a sustainable industrial base. So I bring you back to the end of my ballpark, the industrial operations, that make up the economic foundation of the community. You won't have a sustainable city until those industries are operating sustainably. And then, of course, the city has its own issues to deal with. It has its own footprint, its own carbon footprint to deal with, for example. And it has all of the issues of the political issues of subsidies and rewards and punishments and all the rest that will create the right incentives for not only its populace but also its industrial base. So you've got a very complex thing there to get it all together and make it all work.
And at the same time, that list you ran through that Janine describes what an industry would look like. I was sitting there listening to you tick that list off, and it precisely applies to the community.
That
applies across the board.
Nature defines sustainability for us. We don't have to go hunting for definitions.
How convenient. What we do have to do is open our eyes.
Exactly.
Well, and learn from things that have been learned, including your wonderful Confessions of a Radical Industrialist. Profits, people, purpose. That sounds like worth getting up in the morning for, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's the idea.
You wrote the prologue as we were falling off it just jumped off the cliff. You wrote the epilogue as we were midway down the side of the cliff, plus or minus 30 or 40%. It seems to me that in addition to the economic and ecological disasters, this disruption is a tremendous opportunity to make some of the kinds of changes that you've been talking about. That makes sense in the abstract. I don't know how to make that tangible. Have you been able to get a sense of how do you exploit this opportunity, this challenge, this calamity, this disruption, this discontinuity, which is really what's going on, to begin to drive more generally the kinds of changes that you and I think a lot of people will begin to see as important?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I don't. And I don't want to stray outside my area of competence. Okay, I don't have solutions for the world at large, but I do have the example that we're creating at Interface, and it is in fact proving to be a better way. And the continuing objective that we have is to demonstrate the better business model, hold up the example, so that the toughest-minded CEO there is will look at this and say, "Hey, these guys have something. Let's go see what they're doing, and let's see if anything they're doing applies to us." When Jeffrey Immelt commits General Electric to doubling its R&D from $750 million a year to $1.5 billion in the clean technology area, with the expectation of doubling its revenues from $10 billion to $20 billion in the sale of those clean technologies, there's not an altruistic thought in it. He's doing it because his customers are demanding it. His customers are creating the demand, he's responding to create the supply. And this is the way business evolves. It's supply and demand co-evolving, to a higher and higher level.
As always, Ray Anderson, you inspire, you inform, and you delight. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Paula. Bill, it's a real pleasure to be with you, and you know that. Yeah.
Ray Anderson has had the courage, the will, and the persistence to demonstrate that one can indeed do well by doing good. He and his company have shown that imagination, hard work, and the willingness to change can make a business both profitable and sustainable. Bless him for showing the way. I'm Paula Gordon. I wish you well.